we have, what we've gotten into at this particular point in time is we've gotten into a us versus them mentality, and don't do this project because you can do another project, or you should spend your money here. And I think all of us are looking at priorities. There were a lot of people that said, why should we put a library in Dawn? And I seem to recall that as a hotly contested issue. That particular area of the county or that community needed something like that. They needed a facility like that. Does the Ladysmith area need a Y more than anyone else in the county? You could probably argue that both ways. You could say no, it would be better served in another part of the county. You could say yes, that's where most of the people are that are going to use it. But I think if we really look at it, and I, like Mr. Underwood, talk to a lot of people, talk to a lot of people that live in my district and a lot of people that live outside of my district. I find that Food Line and the post office are the best places to have constituent meetings, because a lot of people will give you their opinion there, whether you plan to or not. But I seem to think that more people in the county want the Y. There are quite a few people in the county that are concerned about the county's debt. And that's a well-founded concern. But as I told someone this evening, the county was not out buying $500 hammers. For the $80 million plus that we're in debt, we definitely got our money's worth. And we got good things. We got new schools. We got renovations to schools. We got courthouses, sheriff's cars, fire and rescue vehicles. We did pretty good for what we got. And like any other government, we now are including that in our every year budget to pay for those things we have. You know, the county it's not really like your home where you save up and buy some things, because we've got requirements that all you folks out there ask us to do things. We've got to educate your kids, keep you safe, and basically one of the things we never really mention is to kind of improve the quality of life. So I personally didn't want to see the Y there if we were going to borrow money. But part of serving in this position is you've got to do things you really don't want to do because your constituents ask you to do it. And you kind of take it with a grain of salt, but you're elected to this position to serve the people. And the people have basically told me that they would like to move forward with this one way or another, so I really don't have any alternative. So I will allow one round for rebuttal if that's what we need to have, but I'm not sure that's required. And if not, a motion for this resolution for the public facility lease revenue bond anticipation notes would be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the resolution of the county of the Board of Supervisors of Caroline County for the interim financing of the 3 projects that are mentioned in the paperwork.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Underwood. Discussion on the motion.
What did you say? Mr. Emerson, should I be more specific, or is the motion good?
The motion is to approve the resolution as presented.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, restated. Motion made by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Underwood. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Chair to Text Division of the House, Mr. Underwood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Popowitz, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley, how do you vote?
Nay.
Mr. Akers, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries 4-1. Agenda item number 6 is approval of fiscal year 2011-2012 budget. Based on our work session, based on our last work session, we still have capital projects that are in our, projects that are in our capital projects plan that are part of our budget. Most of those are reversible decisions. We've basically gone through the budget, and with the balanced budget we have, or at this point we have balanced the budget, including all of these items, which we can at any point in time pull one of those items out. We're not borrowing anything after this until late next year, if that's the case. So is there a problem with approving the budget as stated and including these items in the capital projects plan, however temporary they may be? And if there's no objection?
Mr. Chairman, we heard from Mr. Spencer, our Commonwealth's attorney,
Yes.
and I'd like us to consider that budget, that his amended budget he has set forth to staff, I guess. And I know it doesn't cost any dollars, but I'd also like to consider, before we go on with any budget vote, that we at least reinstate his travel and his postage to that budget as well. I don't know what those figures are, but I guess
Well, what Mr. Spencer has done, and he's stated it fairly well, but just to restate, and Chief Lehman, and I think the sheriff have been in the same position. When the county receives grant funding, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and we hire people with that grant funding, they're instructed, and I know Chief Lehman has done this, they're instructed specifically to say, you are hired as long as this grant is available. And in Mr. Spencer's case, he had a grant for an assistant Commonwealth's attorney, and that grant funding was terminated this year. So he, in accordance with that same process, has said, instead of letting this person go, I'm going to cut other items that equal whatever that grant funding was so I can keep this person.
Yes.
So if we add funding to any of his line items, we're basically going back on the policy we had before.
I understand. But I also think that the public safety is probably one of the biggest issues that we face in Caroline County. And I certainly want Mr. Spencer to have all the tools available to him that he can possibly have.
And I understand that his comment was he would actually fund that line item.
Yes, and he did say he would fund that line item. And I told him I was going to do this, and he asked me not to, but I feel compelled to do that, and at least ask this board to consider it. He is a constitutional officer, and but he needs the tools to do his job, and his people are also part of his toolbox. And I think that we have seen an increase in the amount of convictions in Caroline County. We've certainly seen the amount of court appearances go up quite a bit, and I would like to see us support Mr. Spencer and his office.
And you're saying again, reinstate his travel budget?
Travel budget and his postage.
Ms. Hatcher, make sure I have the right figures before we do that. I have a copy of the budget. I have I have $486 as his postage request, and I have $1,125 as his travel request.
That's correct.
So we're talking $1,601 roughly. That was fuzzy math, is that right?
$1,611.
I told you it was fuzzy. Okay. All right, how does the rest of the board feel? I will take that as a motion, Mr. Popowitz, is that what you're making it?
Sure, I'll make it a motion.
Okay, understanding all of the circumstances and other factors that go into it, is there a second for the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I guess my concern is if we start down this path now, then we have to consider others. And we've heard from the electoral board, and I guess Mr. Emerson will have to look at whatever that code section is, see what it says. But I've got a feeling we face some other issues in the same vein. So if we start down this path now, we may as well keep going. There are others that are going to do the same thing. I don't know that we can at this point. I think we can look mid-year at appropriation if there's funds, but I'm not sure now is the time to do this.
Ms. Akers, you got a comment?
Yeah, I certainly know the Commonwealth Attorney has been cooperative in working with us in trying to reach a budget that he can live with as well as the county can live with. I think that if we vote to do this, make this change, then I think it needs to be some parameters set now as to how far we're going to go. We're talking about $1,600. Are we going to say the limit is $2,000? Are we going to say that there's no limit on what we will consider? I'm in agreement with Mr. Thomas in the fact that we have instructed every department that's come in here with grant funding for bodies, for personnel. We've said to them, be sure you tell the people when you hire them that don't look to retire from Caroline County based on this particular position, because it is only available for as long as the money is available through the grant. And that's, that's what we have said all along. But I want to do what I can for Mr. Spencer, and if $1,600 will do it for him, then I'm okay with that. But I think we need to set a limit or a parameter as to how far we're going to go in the future. Because I think Mr. Seeley is right. Once we open that can of worms, we've opened it, and it's going to be tough to put them back in.
I'll repeat myself.
All right.
Public safety.
I understand.
And for $1,600, I think that my peace of mind is that we've done the best we could in helping Mr. Spencer do his job is worth it to me. And let me also repeat, $1,600 is, compared to the rest of our budget, is certainly minuscule. If it would make the board more comfortable, I will change my motion that we appropriate $1,600 from this year's budget to supplement next year's budget.
Does he have money left over from this year? Do you know?
No.
Do you know whether he has any? He has no money.
He
left.
doesn't?
He doesn't.
No, sir.
Has he overspent his budget?
Projection-wise, because he still has 2 weeks in the fiscal year, is he on track with his budget now or not?
He's having part of it covered by confiscated assets,
Oh,
which he is allowed to do by law.
And he did mention during his public statement that he has a car that he got and he's going to get rid of. And Mr. Popowitz, my opinion, we are not deliberating in this detail over $1,600. We are deliberating in this detail over the process and do we do it, because I've seen Chief Lehman stand in front of us and say, I've got a grant position. He's public safety.
Sure.
And if his grant went away and his firefighter or whoever he hired, medic, whatever, was in the same position, he already had that direction. If the grant goes away, your position goes away.
And if Mr. Lehman or Chief Lehman came to us for a $1,600 request, we'd probably grant it.
Mr. Chairman, certainly we look at the principle. That's what you're talking about, the principle in terms of what we do with positions that are grant funded. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Right.
But I think we have to look beyond that. I think people of this county ask us to look beyond that. You know, old saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. That's our heads. And we have to make decisions that are sensible, reasonable. And I think this is pretty reasonable. It may crack the door, but we're responsible for our decisions. And every decision should carry its own merit. We've made special exemptions before when people come before us. We just did it with fireworks in my district with a 4-to-1 vote, which I disagreed because folks in my district said they didn't want it to occur. So we've made exceptions before. So again, each decision should carry its own weight, its own merit.
And that is the crux of our decision now. We found from Mrs. Hatcher in our budget work session that we'll probably have more than $1,600 in the budget based on a very good year. Well, I won't say a very good year, based on the majority of people paying their tax bill in June, and also on the expenditures that were cut back quite a bit. So it is not the $1,600 that we are really discussing. We are discussing whether we stick to a procedure we've done before, and I'll offer this. Why don't we go along with Mr. Seeley's proposal, and it would be a compromise that, you know, Mr. Spencer's already said he's going to take his salary and fund those two things, the $1,600, and I think his salary is public, so it's like $95,000 or something of that nature.
It's 113.
Excuse me?
113.
113.
State said it.
So right. I have nothing to do with that, but his salary is $113,000. He has said he was going to take money from his salary to make up that difference. Sure. Okay, my decision's made on that last number, so, okay. Your motion is still to go ahead, or would you like to look at it in mid-year? You'd made the motion already.
I've made the motion already, I'll let it stand.
I second it.
You made the second, okay. I think that was discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay? Nay, so we have division again. Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Popowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
And I vote nay, so the motion carries 3-2. Anything else in the budget that we'd like to discuss?
Sure.
And before you bring that up, let me add one more. Because we did budget-related, Mrs. Hatcher, and I think in our work session, we probably need to make this a little formal, but I'm looking for the right adjective, but any funds not used by the school board by June 30th, and I think we had an estimate from Dr. Kelo at our last meeting in the amount of $247,000 or something of that nature. The Board of Supervisors will reallocate that money to the school
They will
board.
reappropriate it.
Reappropriate, okay, we'll reappropriate that money to the school board during the next fiscal year for, I guess, all of the employees that are employed September 8th, which I think is the first day, for bonuses, I think the $500 bonus that we discussed, right? And that's what we had discussed in teachers, school bus drivers, support personnel, I think is what the actual comment was. Mr. Underwood, is that what you have?
Yeah, I think I think we're on the right track, but I think the question that we talked about was whether we were going to give bonuses to personnel that are here this year, or is it going to be personnel who are here at the beginning of next year? I think that's a point of clarification.
Okay. What is
My feeling was that we would give bonuses for those teachers who are here this year. That money would be made available to those teachers who are here this year, who have served through the 2010-2011 school year.
What if a teacher leaves?
You have some retirement, you have,
So retirees would get it?
I would absolutely,
Okay. If you
I
go to
would give
another,
them more, actually.
if you go to another school system, you get it?
I don't think we discussed that, but I think it's a point of discussion, but I think we can discuss it.
What do you think? If you're here now, so we're saying that all teachers that are with the school system at the end of this year
Who return?
who return for next year
That's fine.
would be eligible for that,
Yes, I'll go for, yeah, I'm good there.
okay? Or retire.
Yes, I'm good.
Return or retire.
Yeah, I'm good.
Return or retire, Mr. Popowitz?
Sure.
Mr. Seeley?
I'm not sure we can do that.
What do you mean you're not sure you can do what?
I'm not sure we can do that.
Why? Are you telling, I'm really tired of people telling me why we can't do stuff. I like to hear people say we can and how we can. Because we got Mr. Muniz over there is going to figure out a way for the radio system to give us internet. That's what I'm talking about. People tell us how we can do stuff. Now tell me how we can do it, Jeff.
I don't know that you can
No, I
because
said
you
yes.
have no control over
Well-
how they spend their money.
And
And I'm
Okay.
answering for them.
I guess we could say to the bus driver again, we have no control over how we spend their money. Mr. Sims, I know this is not proper, but go right ahead.
Well, how is it that you can sit up there and tell us how to spend the money that we have been allocated? That is not in for the Board of Supervisors to do.
You're right.
That is a school board function. So how could you waste everybody's time talking about it, grandstanding, and just, making yourself trying to look good in front of a few bus drivers here tonight? Okay? Let us do our job and you do your job. Things would be much better if we could do that.
Mr. Sims, what we were intending to do, and Dr. Kelo, as the school superintendent, had said before, and we can have this discussion. We've had this discussion before privately and separately, but there was an amount in the $247,000 range that the school board projected to return to the county at the end of the fiscal year.
No, that's not true.
That's not true?
You asked us how much could be left at the end of the year that could be used for bonuses, but
Okay.
now you want to tell us when to give the bonuses, how much to give in bonuses, which is not for you to do.
Okay.
You keep telling the bus drivers, we give them the money, it's the school board's fault if you don't get any, and then you sit up here and grandstand like you're giving somebody something.
Okay.
Either figure out what side you're on. If you want to be on the school board, run for the school board. If you want to be on the Board of Supervisors, run for the Board of Supervisors. But don't play in between.
Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Okay?
Thank you.
Let us do our job.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Apparently that wasn't the direction I was looking for or thought we would get. So do we,
It happens. It happens.
do we wish to continue this discussion or do we wish to drop the entire subject?
At this point, I'd like to drop the entire subject myself, because you know what? If the school board doesn't want to work with me and try to figure out what kind of pay they want to give to the teachers, et cetera, that's fine with me. As far as the rest of the budget, I have some items that we think we need to discuss. But,
Can we just, before we move off this item, can we just chat just a minute about it? I don't know.
Wait, let me make sure we all want to continue. Mr. Underwood, do you want to continue or you finished?
I'm happy.
I have a philosophy in life is you can be right or you can be happy. So
I'm happy.
Okay. Mr. Seeley, would you like to continue this discussion, or would you?
I think the only thing that needs to be said is that the funds that are left, if there are funds left, as we discussed with the school board when they met with us, that we are willing to turn those back, for bonuses. And that's what we said we would do. That's what we said at the work session. And I think that's where I was then, and that's where I'm at now. If there are funds, we'll turn them back over to them for bonuses.
I'm not there either. I'm done.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just for a minute. I hate to see us drop this issue from a standpoint how it impacts the employees that we were trying to work with and trying to help. Now, because Mr. Sims and Mr. Sims, I like Mr. Sims and he's a friend. We and I have had differences of opinion before. He allowed his emotions to get the best of him just 3 minutes ago, but and I'd hate to see us as a board slam the door shut on an issue because of the outburst or the emotions. Now, I know we said that we would allow them to use the $243,000. We all said anything they had left over, and I think it was 247 is what was projected to be left over, that we would allow them to use it for bonuses for the employees. But I also know that it was said that it would take about $304,000 to $315,000 in order to give the employees the $500 bonus. Correct?
Everybody was a little bit more, but everybody.
Okay. And so I'm saying, yeah, $500 is not a lot. To be honest with you, for some of the bus drivers that, I think we mentioned one tonight, he said that he would get probably a $500 increase if he gave him a salary, something like that. 8%, which was talked about at one point, 8% of $7,000 is $560. So the $500 bonus he's going to get pretty much what he would have gotten in his salary increase anyway at 8%. I just hate for us to say, I really do hate for us to, at this point, say we're going to drop all discussions and not even maybe try to help out to give the employees a bonus, 5%. And even after we say we're giving the county a bonus.
Mr. Akers, with all due respect,
Thank you.
I heard Mr. Sims loud and clear. He said, let them do their job. So we either give them the money or we don't. And then whatever they do with it, they do with it. It's up to us to appropriate it or not. So then I think that's where we leave it. Door's not closed, door's not open, it's just a door.
Okay. And I agree with you 100%. I heard what he had to say as well, and I agree with 100%. But if we say that we're going to drop it, are we still saying we're going to allow the school board to use whatever they have left over at the end of the year? And we're going to request that they use it for bonuses for employees?
We again do not have any authority over school board
Request.
spending.
All we can do is request. Ask.
That carries no weight. So we will, my opinion is that whatever, as Dr. Kelo said, that there was an amount that could be saved, if there's an amount that could be saved and that money is not used by June 30th, we will make a decision after that time what to do with that extra money. All right, we can move on to other issues in the budget now.
Mr. Chairman, in our summary, there was a issue of the Equine League of $4,000. I think
Excuse me?
the Equine League?
Oh,
Equine League, the Equestrian League. The U.S. Equine League. We had a payment in the budget originally of $4,000, but it was a line item specifically to that facility. And I think if I memory serves, we were going to pay that out of operating funds, not as a separate line item in the budget.
We were going to move it to animal control.
Yes.
That appropriation would move to animal control. It was theoretically an obligation that the county had entered into when a third-party group came to help the county out.
Yes, so it becomes a line item. It's no longer a line item budget that would come up, show up year after year.
Right.
Okay.
One-time expenditure.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to make sure that we do eliminate that, and that we can agree that we should eliminate that line item from the budget. It shows up on our other potential reductions identified.
Mr. Parton, can you take care of that? I mean, we're still going to pay the $4,000.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. It's just
It's
that
just not
I
true.
want that line item deleted because it doesn't need to be there year after
We've
year
got
after
that.
year. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. We haven't had discussions on some of the other reductions identified. I made those suggestions in a workshop. We have still not discussed that.
Well, do we want to go through all of those?
The first one is the transit funding for Fred. The next one is Caroline's Promise. The third one is Big Brothers Big Sisters.
I thought we were under the, well, I didn't think anybody else had a problem with those funding options now.
If the other members of this board agree that that we should leave those alone, and you have 3 people that say that, that's fine with me.
That was just my impression from our work session. You okay with those, Mr. Underwood?
Yeah.
Mr. Seeley, you okay with those? Mr. Akers?
I'm okay with them as long as we leave them as they are. I know that was a request to eliminate Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or program, and I just don't think that is something we need to do in the county at this point. And so as long as we're leaving the amounts as was submitted by the county administrator,
So we're going to leave those appropriations.
yeah,
the way they are.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
Anything
Yeah,
else?
no, I don't think there's any reason to try to make the case, because I don't have the support to do that.
Okay. So that was all you had with relation to the budget?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I made my suggestions weeks ago, so.
All right, the only actual change we're making in that case is we're going to make an additional $1,611 appropriation to the Commonwealth's attorney. What do you don't have the budget resolution, you have the new budget resolution?
I can give you the new numbers. You have the budget resolution for the Commonwealth Attorney.
I just add 1611 to whatever I have here?
The number would be $348,979.
How did you do this? Did you add these numbers in here already, or you just had this?
Page 4.
Oh,
Oh,
I thought
that is because the budget resolution that went out in the packet on page 4 showed 6,000 for the Y, and it should be 5,000. So I had to change that number on the last page.
I thought you printed this out right now and printed back here,
No,
but that's
no,
okay.
no.
Okay,
I'm not that good.
that's why I asked you how. I thought you were, but that's okay. All righty, so we have the budget resolution with us, and we're substituting page 4. For whatever reason, I don't have the other 3 pages. I got page 4. Oh, duh. Okay, so the budget as it is, Mr. Emerson, we can approve the budget as it is, and just modify the last number. That's okay? So a motion to adopt the budget resolution as stated, with the only change being the 1611 for the Commonwealth's attorney would be appropriate. Okay.
Well, there's 2 numbers that would change for that.
The 1611 more, and then from 6,000 to 5,000.
The 1611 would be added to the Commonwealth Attorney. On page 2, there is a line item called contingency. It's the last thing before the general fund total. That would have to be reduced by the 1611. Also, animal control would be increased by 4,000 because you want to move the donation to the Equine League to animal control and out of outside agencies. So that would have on page 2, the social service contributions outside agencies would be reduced by 4,000.
Okay, if you don't mind,
I can give you the numbers.
no, I'm just gonna ask you to repeat that if you don't mind.
Okay.
We're gonna adopt the budget resolution because we haven't made any real changes to the budget as it was presented today.
I do have the one change on page 4.
Okay, so let me see if the board wishes to adopt the budget resolution that we have, and then I will ask you to, make the changes. Okay. All right, we're going to adopt the budget resolution, or, well, we need a motion to adopt the budget resolution. The only thing is you don't have categories for the school like we normally do.
If you look on page 2 and 3, there are the revenues as the school board presented the budget earlier in the year. The expenditures on page 3, you will see the categories as they gave us the budget earlier in the year. You also see a credit before the total for $2,114,000. Because I do not have the breakdown, the revised breakdown based on our 11.5 contribution.
Okay.
And I will bring their budget back in July to have it amended once they give it to me corrected.
Mrs. Self, I am not going to let this happen again. We are in the contingency was where again, Mrs. Hatcher?
Contingency is the last line on page 2 before for the total for the
Right.
general fund expenditures.
Okay. Which we have an amount of $45,886
Minus 1611.
minus 1611. If the board is required to provide additional funding to the registrar's office, that's the line item it'll come from. And trust me, we will not have any more discussion about the budget outside of the board, okay?
So are you,
I'm telling you, you can probably have a seat because we're not going to have any discussion.
but you had promised me at the last meeting that you would have an answer at this meeting whether the board
Okay.
is going to allow us to have funding or not.
Okay, the answer is no.
You're not going to allow us to have any funding for the position.
The
that
answer is
we're
no.
working on.
Yes.
Okay.
And
All
what
I
I'm,
need to know.
what I'm saying is, if we have to give you money, that was what I was trying to say that without telling you no, but apparently that's not working. So the answer is no.
Sir, I don't,
The answer is no.
that's all I need.
At this time, there will be no additional funding for the registrar's office.
Okay. Thank
Okay?
you, sir.
Thank you very much. Now, is there a motion to approve the budget as it is?
So
With
moved,
the-
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Because I'm having flashbacks here. I wasn't always a nice guy. Is there a second to the motion to approve the budget?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Akers. We are approving the budget resolution with the modifications that Mrs. Hatcher is going to give us right now.
Commonwealth Attorney would increase by $1,611. Animal Control will increase by $4,000.